Hello friends! 3 out of 4 European Opel Zafira 2s in Europe were sold with diesel engines. These are 1.7 CDTI from Isuzu, 110 and 125 horsepower, both after restyling, and 1.9 CDTI from Fiat, 100, 120, and 150 horsepower. First of all, it is worth recommending the 120 horsepower 1.9 CDTI. It provides a decent combination of performance, fuel consumption, and high reliability. The 150 horsepower 1.9 CDTI, designation Z19DTH, suffers from wear on the flaps and the control element in the intake manifold. As a result, traction drops, and check lights up. The intake piping must be replaced. Also, the Egr valve of the Egr system is often jammed. Symptoms are difficult starting, and the turbine does not reach full power with an increase in speed. Lack of traction can also be the result of a clogged PDF particulate filter. The 1.7 CDTI may stall after starting a cold engine. The proportional valve on the injection pump is to blame for this. The original pump does not provide for valve replacement, unlike the non-original one. This unit has always been equipped with a particulate filter. Usually, the filter reaches 250,000 kilometers. Globally, the 1.7 CDTI is reliable and durable. However, there are problems with the turbocharger. It was supplied by Mitsubishi. Timing drive, belt. The toothed belt drives not only the camshafts, but also the oil pump. Belt replacement should be entrusted to a specialist, as this is a special procedure. If this is not done correctly, then the performance of the pump can be affected, and in the long run, finish off the engine. Since 2009, the 1.7 CDTI has been using Denso piezo injectors, which have proven to be somewhat more delicate than previous Bosch solenoid injectors. Petrol 1.6 twin port, 105 horsepower, 115 horsepower after restyling, is too weak for a big family car. The prefix twin port in the name 1.6 liters, 105 horsepower, means the use of swirl flaps in the intake tract. Sometimes they start rattling. But usually they do not come off and accordingly do not get into the engine. It happens that the damper position sensor fails, which is not difficult to replace. Much worse if you have to change the intake manifold. Sometimes happens. Version 1.6 CNG, 94 and 97 horsepower, running on natural gas is very rare. It makes sense to buy this modification only if you are usually not in a hurry, and there are gas stations nearby. Much livelier than the younger 1.6T CNG, 150 horsepower turbo engine. The 1.8 liter Z18 XER engine, 140 horsepower, is the best option in terms of performance, although it is costly to maintain. The Opel Zafira family also has a weaker 120 horsepower version of the 1.8 engine. To drive the timing, a toothed belt is used, which should be updated after 60,000 kilometers. A pair of VVT phase regulators is installed in the gas distribution system. They usually do not bother the owners much, but in cars assembled before 2010, gears often began to rumble after 100 to 150,000 kilometers. The main problem with 1.8 is the ever-flowing heat exchanger gaskets. The oil gets into the antifreeze. It is necessary to eliminate the defect every 50 to 100,000 kilometers. In extreme cases, if the new gaskets do not last long, you have to change the heat exchanger housing. Oil can also get into the antifreeze through a leaky oil pump gasket, which usually happens after 150 to 200,000 kilometers. To this should be added periodically etching oil seals of the crankshaft, camshafts, and valve cover gasket. Periodically require attention thermostat and ignition module. It is much more pleasant to drive a van with 2.0T turbo engine, 200 horsepower. The same engine, but with a power of 240 horsepower, was installed on a sports-tuned modification of the OPC, Opel Performance Center. The 2-liter turbo engine is a big fan of engine oil. Worn piston rings are often to blame. the latest direct injection powertrain available and the largest displacement of 2.2 liters, 155 horsepower. This is a Z22YH from Australian Holden. Its disadvantage is the short-lived injection pump. The vast majority of diesel engines were aggregated with a 6-speed manual transmission M32, originally from Fiat. Its weak point is the shaft bearings. The defect is manifested by noise, howling, and the movement of the gear lever. Although Opel does not supply bearings as spare parts, specialized service mechanics will select and install analogs. The malfunction has to be eliminated in the segment of 200 to 300,000 kilometers. Sometimes the 5-speed F17 mechanics, paired with 1.6 and 1.8 liter gasoline engines, also fail. But the manual transmission clutch will please with its resource, over 300,000 kilometers. The 5-speed Easytronic robotic gearbox based on the F17 manual transmission did not gain fame. The clutch runs no more than 100 to 150,000 kilometers. And by 150 to 200,000 kilometers, the brushes in the electric motors of the clutch and gear shift drive wear out. The AF40 6-speed automatic transmission from Japan's Aisin is a good choice. Opel Zafira B is based on the station wagon Opel Astra 3H. Mechanics note much fewer problems with the minivan's suspension compared to the donor. Probably the reason is in different purposes and operating conditions. The Opel Zafira is first and foremost a family car that is not driven on the road and is better taken care of. However, the suspension settings allow for a bit of hooliganism. Some Opel Zafira B imported from Western Europe are equipped with electronically controlled dampers CDC, part of the Sports Chassis IDS Plus. The ceiling of their life is 100,000 kilometers. Slightly less advanced Sports Chassis IDS. Both suspensions are lowered by 15 millimeters and could only be installed on vehicles with an engine capacity of at least 120 horsepower. An interesting Nivamat option. It provides automatic adjustment of the height of the rear suspension. A useful feature if you often have to carry something in the trunk. However, sports suspension and Nivamat are mutually exclusive things. They were never installed together. In general, the chassis of Zafira B is quite stable. The first, as a rule, are the stabilizer struts, steering tips, and traction. Levers and silent blocks, on the contrary, usually serve for a long time. In addition, ball joints and bushings are supplied as separate parts. Rear beam silent blocks wear out after 200,000 kilometers. The front wheel bearings had to be updated after 100 to 150,000 kilometers. Rear wheel bearings travel over 200 to 250,000 kilometers. Individual owners after 200,000 kilometers had to deal with the failure of the EGUR pump. When choosing an Opel, it is better to consider restyled options produced after 2008. They are assembled better and have fewer faults. Pre-styling samples pester the creak of plastic in the cabin, which they got rid of after modernization. In addition, the Opel Zafira B brings an electronic SIM module under the steering wheel and ESP. The power window controller may also fail. Buttons stop working. Some vehicles have a coolant level sensor while others do not. On machines with a sensor, low fluid messages may appear on the display. With a normal level of antifreeze, the sensor is to blame, but sometimes the reason is the float, which is part of the expansion tank. With age, the wiring in the protective corrugation between the rear door and the body is interrupted. As a result, there are malfunctions of the power window and central lock. And in the event of a short circuit, the audio system and central locking may fail. Small pockets of corrosion and swelling of the paintwork are found after 10 to 14 years of operation. Problem areas are the trunk lid, the bottom of the doors, the sills, and the rear wheel arches. After 150 to 200,000 kilometers, there are problems with charging the battery due to a faulty generator. If you know of other model malfunctions, be sure to write about it.